like sucking, but I ain't gay.
Legit bad podcast.
Fuck those honkies.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
He really knows how to suck a wiener.
Welcome back to Legit Bat. I'm Joe. Jen is here. Ben is here. Lene is here. We're all here. And I fucking fucked up my button.
Boner.
Nope. Got the right button, yes.
I think boner and then cheers is good.
Yeah, hang on.
Boner.
Yeah,
Nailed it.
love it. Our intro gets more retarded every time we do the show. It's very if you want to find us on video, it's rockfin.com/legitbat, and it's ad-free, and you get all the awesome shows like the guest we have on today, Chris Mathieu from Forbidden Knowledge News. And he so graciously added us to the Forbidden Knowledge Network, and there's tons of other shows on there too. We do put stuff on YouTube, but mostly is just kind of an ad for Rockfin and the audio show. So if you're watching on YouTube, hello, hi, good to have you. I know there's a bunch of assholes on YouTube, but most of our fucking comments on YouTube have been positive. There's a couple knobs out there, but we're not going to give them any credit.
No more talking about knobs on the show.
Yeah, no knobs.
Nope.
This is a no knob show.
Knob
But
free.
Chris, what's up, brother? Good to have you. We just talked to Chris a couple weeks ago on his show, but now he's on our show, so he gets the bat treatment. So what's going on?
Hit me with that bat. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
excellent, guys. Thank you for having me back on. Great to be back, and always looking forward to our fantabulous conversations.
Well, that's subjective, whether it's fantabulous or not. But what's
in my
going on?
world is fantabulous, so that's all that matters, right?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
If you go back to what he just said, he was already beating off to us talking about like technicalities on apps. This is like a godsend for him. He's just
That's
so
right.
horny after the end of it.
You guys watch the takeout what do you call those? Whatever.
Outtakes.
Blooper clips.
Outtakes.
Outtakes.
Yeah.
That'll be on the
Basically, our whole show is an outtake, and I guess that's why
Just an
people
outtake
watch,
for life.
just to laugh
Aren't
at
we
it.
all?
Yeah, we're all just outtakes.
Lord knows.
What have you been? I listened to your show, but for the listeners, what have you been talking about on your show lately? What's really piqued your interest? Is it politics or current events, or is it something more interesting than that?
You know, in the last 3 to 6 months, maybe year, I have been straying more and more away from parapolitics and gloom and doom and stupid bullshit that's happening on our reality, and focusing more on the spiritual side and paranormal and woo-woo and crazy stuff and the nature of reality. And that's been really, I mean, that's where my heart's at. So that's where I, naturally have been driven to drive that focus a little bit. So yeah, I've had some wonderful guests in those categories. I still do, parapolitics and bullshit that's happening in our society and the apocalypse and all this crazy negative shit that people want to throw out into our world, but mostly weird shit like paranormal and high strangeness.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah, that's so funny. I mentioned it on your show when we were on your show, but that spirituality thing kind of appeared last year, to me at least, as far as being very prominent in this community. And it's funny because everyone was so focused on politics and we're just diving deep into the nonsense of it all and making fun of it. We still do, but we just turned away from it. And it's funny how there was a group of people, it seemed like, who just started turning away from all of that negativity and going towards something more positive.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's I can see the other direction too. I have a few people, a couple that's on the network that are actually going the opposite direction. Instead of they used to focus more on spiritual and paranormal shows. Now they're getting more into government corruption and black projects and things like that, which is still all cool. It's just not the direction I've been driven to lately. But I've also been really fascinated with places of high strangeness like Skinwalker Ranch. I'm hopefully going to be able to take a trip out there within a couple of months and check it out for myself. Other places like Blind Frog Ranch, the Meadow. These are like at one time were undisclosed locations that aerospace companies are going to check out. And they got a couple of cats that are signing some non-disclosure agreements because of the shit that's going on, experiments out there. So I've been really into that. Have you heard of an Lamp before?
No.
No.
No, this is something new for me too. Have you had Ryan Burns on?
No, but I just heard him on your show, so I might try to schedule him on soon.
Ask him about the Lamp. This is supposedly some sort of technology that they're using out there at these locations that simulates the effects of DMT within a certain radius of this machine or technology. And they're like setting up tents and turning this thing on and having like insane paranormal experiences and shit. So yeah,
No
that's,
way.
yeah, pretty
Well,
insane.
I mean, if,
What's that?
Where's that at?
where is it?
Oh, this is the property right outside of Skinwalker Ranch. This is
I have not heard of that.
near
Skinwalker
Ryan
Ranch.
Burns. He's a researcher out there. You have not heard of Skinwalker Ranch?
I have not.
Oh, well, yeah, this is like one of my favorite places, research places. It's out in the Uintah Basin in Utah, and it's for many, many years have just been a paranormal hotspot, UFO activity, ghosts. They've had families that own the property. They had Bigelow Aerospace was actually on the property for a while doing experiments and trying to figure out what the hell is going on behind the strange activities there. And recently they've had more aerospace companies go out there, and my friend has had to sign some NDAs because he's involved with some of the research, and they're like digging underground, looking for anomalies underground. And it's not only like, just ghosts and UFOs and aliens and stuff, but they have like Bigfoot encounters. They have disembodied voices, strange electromagnetic anomalies, people's equipment just either going missing or just stopping working, all kinds of crazy shit within the vicinity of this area. So it's really insane what's going on there.
And
We
something
have
that
the
she would
book,
be,
Lene, so you can borrow it and read all about the stories of the family.
Sweet. I want to go camping over there.
and one of the
Let's go.
things that you would recognize too is that the two gentlemen that did it are George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, who did Moment of Contact and the
Oh.
Phenomenon.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure the listeners are familiar with Skinwalker Ranch, but it's a cornucopia of weird shit. It's just it's not just UFOs or anything. It's
Cattle mutilation,
vortex.
everything.
It's literally everything, and some things that are in a category of their own too. I remember from reading the book, it wasn't just UFOs, Bigfoot, and
Multiverse.
Dogman and all this shit. It's like, yeah, it's like a portal area for literally anything you can fucking imagine.
Yeah, my favorite story in that was when they couldn't find any of their cattle because they were cattle ranchers, and they went out and there was like a trailer or something on the property. They looked everywhere for their cattle and they couldn't find a single one. And then they went and opened this trailer and they were all in it, like jam-packed inside of this trailer, which they would never have been able to, first of all, open the door or go in there. It was just very odd.
Yeah, I can tell you a couple of the most crazy stories that I've heard, either from Ryan or other researchers that are involved with those. One of them was from Ryan himself, and you got to get him on. He's got tons and tons of these stories, but this was from his early days of research. He was there with someone else on the property at night, and they see what they believe is a human approaching, and he appears to have like a security type outfit on, looks like a security guard. But when he gets closer, they notice he just doesn't look right. They can't make out his facial features. It looks blurry. His arm length keeps changing. His arms will get longer and shorter, and he's like morphing into different shapes and stuff. And when he gets like almost to where they can make out what it looks like, it stops. And it acts like it's like calling in something on, it was like trying to mimic a security guard. It acts like it was trying to call in something on a radio, but it didn't really look like it was holding a radio. And it started to make all kinds of weird gestures and stuff. And when they tried to take a step towards it, it took 2 steps back, and they noticed this thing had no facial features and no real fingers. It was just kind of like tentacle things. And it started to just back up and just waddle away into the darkness, eventually till you couldn't see it anymore. That's the first one. That's like a crazy humanoid encounter. Another was he saw what looked like a tumbleweed or some dust just rolling through the area, and it looked like this dust was in a tornado type formation, and then all of a sudden it starts, these particulates, which appeared to be dust, start to form shapes, and the shape turns into a fucking coyote, and the coyote looks at him and just runs off. And he's also had other encounters with these particulates, like these little nano things that look like dust that actually formed humanoids and human figures. And one of the researcher friends that he had was out there, was actually attacked by one of these kind of dust bot nano creatures. It actually picked him up and started sending all kinds of crazy messages into his mind, and then just dropped him and dissipated. So yeah, shit like that goes on out there.
Historic Materials is alive and well.
Yeah, dust. Yeah. What do you think? What do you make of that? Because it seems semi-physical then, or at least enough physical to pick him up and shit. Like what is that, and why would they beam stuff into your head? I've never understood the point of that either. And people are like, I got downloads about all this crazy stuff, but most of the time they can't remember it, first of all. And then when they do remember it, it's, oh, it was all love and all, the answer is love. That's the main thing, which, okay, fair enough. But it's pretty fucking.
From alien abductions? Is that what you're talking?
Anything like that. Yeah. Any kind of paranormal stuff. Anytime somebody gets a download or they get these messages, and it always seems to be that, which is fair, but it's such a cliche at this point that it's like,
right.
Okay, what does that actually mean though?
Well, there's so much shit going on there. There's military activity. There's stuff that could be attributed to black projects along with the paranormal stuff. But as far as what's going on with like kind of beaming things into people's mind, there's different aspects that this could, different possibilities of what this could be. It could be, like I said, black military projects. Maybe they're fucking with people. Maybe they're dosing people with some kind of drug. Maybe it's their nanobots forming these weird things and attacking people. I don't know. The other one is that it's, of course, aliens or some type of interdimensional intelligence. And the one that lots of like Ryan himself and other researchers believe, that it's some kind of overarching like consciousness that inhabits, like this intelligence that inhabits the area and is able to shapeshift into whatever your perception allows, or whatever it would like you to perceive it as, or whatever you can handle or believe in. It manifests as different things according to like a person's belief system. So that could be, that could even be this, interdimensional being or something like that. But he believes it's just a form of consciousness that inhabits that area, that is able to manifest in multiple different ways, from lights to disembodied voices to nanobots or things like that. But I happen to think that there is a lot of military stuff that we're mistaking for paranormal shit or UFOs going on out there. How much, I don't know. So it's very interesting to look at that stuff, and it makes me wonder how much they know, and how much, how deep our technology is embedded with this shit.
I mean, that definitely brings in, a lot more credibility to the idea of a future Project Bluebeam, because if the more that you actually go away from either interdimensional, paranormal, alien, any of those things that a lot of times with people who are outside of it, like for a long time myself, I just kind of lumped all those things together. I didn't know the separation between interdimensional, alien, entity, any of those things. It definitely gives a lot more credibility to there being what people call the nuts and bolts craft idea of what the phenomenon could be. If it is black site projects, well, then it's something that is definitely nuts and bolts, like for sure. And if it's more of a consciousness or ether or whatever it is that you want to talk about, or even just an entity that is capable of it, well, any of those kind of shape-shifting entities, they're obviously already capable of knowing what you can handle. And so then they manifest themselves based on what your consciousness is capable of understanding, so that you don't freak out. That's what allows them to, stay relevant with multiple different people that might come out there to do research and shit. That's kind of terrifying, because if it has not only that ability to shift, but also the ability to read what you are capable of handling mentally. Like that's absolutely terrifying. That's a consciousness that is definitely not from here.
Well,
Right. And
even to add to that, there's aspects where whatever this is, some of the researchers said that if an aerospace company or a black military project is out there working on some kind of technology and testing it, this phenomenon will not only manifest as that technology, but it will one up it, and it will either transform that technology, or it'll make it better, or it'll simulate it in a way that
Right.
we don't understand. So it's
Keep it
like,
coming back.
yeah, it's kind of like toying. It's always like
Right.
10 steps ahead of where we're going, seemingly.
When you
Yeah, a
think
lot of
you
the-
figured it out, it's like,
Yeah.
A lot of the
Like, we're
weird
better.
like high strangeness stuff almost seems like a test, or like, you know, a beta trial of something. I wouldn't put it past all of this stuff to be nuts and bolts, like Ben was saying.
absolutely.
I think that's kind of short-sighted to think that it's all nuts and bolts. There does seem to be other stuff to it, but I wouldn't, if you start thinking about it in categories like, okay, let's think of all this shit as nuts and bolts, like physical technology. I wouldn't put it past that. I think there's shit out there that we have no fucking idea about. I wanted to mention real quick, Charlie, shout out Charlie Robinson. He mentioned on day 0 that there was this book called Camelio, and I immediately downloaded the audiobook and listened to it. It is unfucking real. It's a crazy story. If you have time to read it, it's like an 8.5 hour listen. I don't know how big the actual book is, but it
How do
goes
you spell it?
over like chameleon, but just Camelio. So it's like Project Camelio. And they end up talking to this dude that was, you know, coming up with all this technology for invisibility. And so the story itself is absurd. Like the dude that's in it is this heroin meth addict. And so his friend that's writing the book is just thinking, oh, he's just a fucking crackhead. Like, who cares? But as you go on, there's certain validating qualities. Like there's a Fed that keeps showing up to the dude's house to like check in on him. And I won't give away the whole story. Like it's worth reading or listening to, but there's
Robert Guffey?
Robert Guffey, I think. Yeah.
Or Guffey. Okay, perfect. I got it.
Yeah. So check out that book if you get time, because it goes into it seems fucking crazy and like this guy's hallucinating, but then near the end of the book, it's just like, I mean, more questions than answers, like fucking usual. But yeah, that's why I wouldn't put it past a lot of this stuff to be some kind of technology that they're kind of beta testing, because that was kind of the point of the book, is that they think he was being tested in real time for this technology, and it was the perfect test candidate because he was a fucking junkie. Who's gonna believe him? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like candidate, like he automatically discredits himself by being a meth head. So, but then there's other parts of it that I'm like, no, there's something not physical about this shit. But then you, like I said, you think about the other way, and it's like, well, technology sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic, so maybe it is.
Well,
When we saw that crazy spaceship or whatever we saw
Yeah.
over our house, it was on 4th of July. And it was, in my opinion, 100% military, even though we couldn't really quite tell what it was. And it looked like it was cloaked. It didn't look quite like a TR-3B or whatever, but it was something like that. It looked like a group of stars flying in a triangular pattern, but then it also had substance. And then there was kind of a green glow, and it was completely silent. But on the night of 4th of July is when we saw it. How many reports were there that were completely discounted because it was 4th of July? You saw lights,
Oh yeah,
fireworks.
we saw lights.
Even if we described it completely differently, it could be taken away. So
It's wild too, because I know we've told that story before on our show, but the UFO we saw directly over our fucking house. So we happen to live under a flight path for our local airport, and it was following pretty much the same trajectory and same speed as a plane, except it was a fucking triangle and it was see-through. So I don't remember hearing too many other stories about that. I've heard stories about cloaking, but nothing that specific. So every story is like a little bit different, but kind of similar. Have you ever heard any stories about cloaked craft? I mean, I know you have, but sometimes it's clouds, like it looks like a cloud, but it's a triangle cloud, or, you know, but
yes. Have I told you guys about Nick Hayes and his photography of sky entities?
I don't think
Oh,
so.
okay.
Is that the squid looking things or
yeah,
the
squid, sky
okay.
squids, and like whales in the sky. He does infrared and different types of filtered technology, photography. Excuse me, that allows him to see different spectrums of what's in the sky. And he's taken pictures of crazy shit that looks like massive biological entities in the sky, like you said, like squids, whales, fish. But not only that, also stuff that does look like technology, like ships, lights, geometric shapes, just the craziest shit that shouldn't be, that's normally we can't perceive in the sky. But there's something to it because these are more than just reflections and refractions. This is a professional photographer that knows what he's doing, and the imagery that comes out is incredible when it comes to like these biological or squid or fish or looks like amoebas in the sky. And that just makes me wonder if there is indeed another spectrum of life just surrounding us at all times that we can't see. That does add to that. But like you were saying, if it is true that this is just us, we have black technology that is beyond anything we can imagine. I already know that it's probably 50, 100 or more years ahead of what they would ever show us. That's the most terrifying possibility for me, that it's all us, that we are that evil that we would go to those lengths to do mind control experiments. And we know that we're already doing that but to what extent? To the extent to where all this paranormal stuff that we're experiencing is really us fucking with us. I don't know. That's a kind of dark, bleak thought, but it's possible.
Real quick to jump back to what Joe had mentioned, when he was talking about the idea of the addiction, I mean, it's been a common thing now for a while that anytime somebody has a deep vice, specifically one that fucks with their mental state, they end up being more and more of a candidate. It's like a doorway, whether it be for spirit possession, alien abduction, any of those things. There seems to be a commonality specifically with drugs and alcohol, to where it's more of a magnet to those kind of ideas, or interacting with something like that. And then there's also the idea that once you do look at it or you look into it, it starts looking back, and you can start having more of interactions that way. Joe and Jen, she just showed me, apparently over Palo Cedro, there was like 20 orange lights that looked like they were in a triangular pattern that were going from southwest to northeast, and then kind of like disappeared. Somebody got a picture of it on Facebook and posted it.
What was that? I don't remember seeing
Send
it at
it
all.
to you.
It just popped up. She'll send it over to you. It looks like what you would see out of like the Phoenix Lights. Just without the
this
outline.
area is great for that. Like, I'm not surprised now, knowing what I know about this area and Mount Shasta specifically. Like that, I'm not surprised that there's stuff like that out here. But you'd think there'd be more. It's remote enough out here, and I mean, I guess some of those, like the Phoenix Lights, that was over a heavily populated area, which is why so many people saw it and recorded it. But you'd think they would do these tests over sparsely populated areas to kind of mitigate the amount of talk around it. But
Unless they're experimenting on people on purpose,
right, there's that too,
which
who
they
knows?
definitely do.
Which
here.
there's also, especially with where the Phoenix Lights was at. I mean, they had over, 10,000 calls within a couple of hours during the phenomena of random people in the Phoenix area, and I forget the other town, saying that they saw this thing, how close it was, how it was moving. All of their stories matched up. Thousands of people that don't know each other. And then during the documentary that they had about it, they were talking about, obviously there's a lot of military interactions that happen in that area because of the military bases. But what that did was it gave off-duty military personnel, people that had flown aircraft in that area on those bases, that were like, I have never seen any of this tech. I was off when it went over. First thing I did was call who I could talk to at the base to find out, not saying I should go public, but is there anything I can tell, like my friends and family, like, yeah, no, it's operations, it's classified, don't worry about it, like anything. And they were and they even blurred out these, high level officers' faces and shit for the documentary. And they all said, they were like, I've never seen anything like that. And just like back in the 40s and 50s where, oh, it's weather balloons. It's like,
Yeah, swamp gas.
what?
Well, I think that there is this aspect of a reverse cover up going on in a way where we are blaming extraterrestrials for a lot of our black military stuff or our mistakes or things that have happened in the past. I know I've had a couple of guests recently that were saying that the events at Roswell may have been just a Japanese dirigible attack that we were too embarrassed to really admit. So we blame extraterrestrials, and things like this happen throughout our history. But it could be still going on into some aspects where we're introducing new technology and we don't want the public to know about it. So we're just blaming extraterrestrials. And to add a layer of darkness to that, there are some researchers that believe the whole alien psyop, a lot of the information that's coming out of the extraterrestrial community and people who are in this new age community are being fed this information is being fed to them from intelligence agencies. They have people from intelligence agencies inserted into conferences and on talk shows and things like that, just to feed this extraterrestrial narrative. And the reason they want to feed the extraterrestrial narrative is to push the public consciousness away from the fact that it is just us doing some really nasty, dark shit for the purposes of global warfare or for national defense or whatever that we want to say. But we have some extreme technology, and it's probably free energy implications for the technology that we have, that if the public found out, they say, oh, fuck, you have this. Why haven't you been able to, do all the things that we should have done years ago to free us from all these enslavements of energy? So there's that aspect. So then there's another thing where it's possible that they could be, and I've heard this from a couple of, I'll say, whistleblowers that claim to be former Illuminati high-level, just high-level individuals that say that they are taking people. Not only are they putting people in the community from intelligence and things like that, they're taking people from who are already into UFOs and stuff, and possibly, in some voice to skull technology shit on them, maybe inserting some things in their dreams, maybe even, giving them false memories somehow of underground bases and aliens and all this stuff, just to even further that whole ET narrative. Now that's really dark and twisted, and there's no way to prove any of that, but it's interesting to consider that, though.
No, yeah. What better way to hide something than by creating a parallel, story to something? Like I think the last show we did with you on ours was called the old double reverse, and I think it was more about COVID, but it seems like the same thing, like you said, with Roswell, where something actually happened, like whatever you want to call it, Japanese attack, whatever, or our own technology malfunctioned and they fucked up, whatever. And then the story gets out immediately with Roswell. At least the immediate story was aliens fucking crashed here. And then they came back later and said, no, that's garbage. It was actually just a weather balloon.
It was like one of your first limited hangouts, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like layering of stories to cause confusion on purpose, because then you got people fighting over, no, it was aliens. Oh no, it was swamp gas, whatever. And that works great for them, because then nobody's pointing up where they're supposed to be pointing. I mean, I don't know if it was aliens or not. We've talked about that, I think, on the last show we did with you on your show, is that I think a lot of this stuff is the same thing, just appearing differently, or it could, like we said, all be nuts and bolts. Who fucking knows?
All I can go off is my own personal experiences. And I have had what I personally believe as genuine contact with not necessarily extraterrestrials, but some other intelligence other than myself. And the reason I believe that is because of multiple experiences and information that I've received and occurrences that happened after that, and everything, all the amazing things that have happened since. And the amount of synchronistic events surrounding that has convinced me in my own personal journey that I'm dealing with something other than my own intelligence. And I just consider that my spirit guides, or, maybe I've gotten in touch with some kind of angelic entity, but that's what in my understanding at this moment, that I'm communicating with my spirit guides. And I furthered that contact with the use of psychedelics. I dose psychedelics, and I've been doing this for a very long time and with very consistent results in the communication. And I've actually been able to what you would call channel these entities recently. I've been doing some things with my girlfriend, who is also she's a
Whoa,
gifted
buddy.
psychic. Hey, yeah, baby. But we've been doing these plant medicine vision quests where I am actually able to channel what I understand as my spirit guides and get great information. But it's usually these, in my experience, and most in the most profound personal experiences that I've encountered with others, the information that you're getting during this is for your own growth and it's like personal information that will help you in your spiritual journey. But I've also gotten information about, people that are very close to me, are connected to me, and not necessarily about the war in Ukraine or what's happening in politics, or is the world about to end, or all these global events or future events. And just in my experience, I've never received any type of even if I ask about it, it doesn't come that way. It's more of a personal advancement situation. And I'm not saying that everybody's experiences are even close to mine, because I know that everyone's experiences are very different. But the ones that are most genuine to me are the ones that have had the experiences that have this personal aspect of spiritual growth to them. And that is what I've come to understand is the intelligence that I'm dealing with. But, it could be different for others, but it's pretty profound to know that I actually have made this contact. And that's my confirmation that there is something else out there, whether it's physical or not physical on any level. It's just a kind of confirmation for me.
Well,
Yeah,
Joe,
and it does seem to be kind of a theme that reality is subjective to the person, and it's meant for you. The things you experience really only apply to you. And that's why, like dreams or anything else, you try to explain it to somebody, or psychedelic trips, try to explain it to somebody, and you're never going to fully convey what happened because it happened to you. And that's really all that matters. Sorry, Ben, go ahead. I cut you off
fine.
again.
When you asked earlier, what's the point of all these downloads that people end up getting? Obviously, 80-90% of it is fluff. We talked about that with past life experiences. It's always someone important that they were in
Flowering,
their
yeah.
right. And the downloads of information are always something that the public doesn't know. And then when they ask them about it, they're like, well, I'm not supposed to say anything. And you never get anything of substance out of it. And it's kind of like, okay, you've got the attention. Congratulations. And now you're going to get filed away because you
Corey,
didn't
good.
actually give us anything. But I did hear a parallel of what he was just talking about, what Chris was just talking about. And that question is sometimes those downloads of greater political or even paranormal revelations and downloads, they may not have anything to do with you, but the questions that you've been asking about those world problems, you may have answers given to you about things that don't have anything to do with you, because that removes a roadblock for you of questioning that now you can proceed on with your life past those greater issues that you've been stuck on and can continue to grow. So a lot of times what I've heard is that these downloads of information are strictly for your benefit, like Chris was saying, even though it technically doesn't have anything to do with you. It's this, and even though you may not be able to recite it, it's almost like that key being turned in the lock that undoes it, even though you may not remember the key or what the lock was. But it's for the purpose of going, okay, yes, we know that you really want to know whether or not there are aliens out there, or whatever the thing is that is beyond you, a greater question. And it's like, we're downloading this for you so that you can move past it, because until you do that, you're not going to grow in any of these areas. So I think that that's a big possibility where, like Chris said, it's very personal, even if it's not personal. It may not have anything to do with you specifically, but it is in the way that you are getting something that you need to grow farther. Now, going back a little bit, what he said about the free energy thing, that was something that Bob Lazar first brought up when they were talking about element 115, the idea that if you have an element in a craft that basically perpetually creates itself while extinguishing itself, so that it can continuously go. And that was before they confirmed element 115. It's like, okay, so I get at that point why they wouldn't have confirmed it, because it was volatile. They still haven't been able to harness it, even with CERN finally being able to find it in 0.4 seconds of atomic collision. But the idea is
a lot of
yeah,
controversy over Bob Lazar in general anyway.
I'm not
That
saying anything
aside,
about
yeah.
that. My point is that the element was confirmed 15, 16, 17 years after he had mentioned it by name. So the idea is that even if they did confirm it, and even if they could harness it, why in the world, for the fucks at the top, would they actually roll that out to the public, knowing that that is a huge point of tenuous power that they can use to control the public?
Reprogramming.
Yeah, they wouldn't let that secret fly. And whether it be free energy or anything else that we've talked about, ETs, they're never going to indefinitely confirm it, because as soon as they do that, whether they like it or not, 8 billion people that are not in the top 0.01% are going to start pushing to make it a part of their lives. So as long as they keep that information under wraps, that no, it isn't confirmed, yes, it's confirmed, no, it's not, this, that, and the other, whether it be free energy, ETs, it doesn't matter. As soon as they confirm it, people start moving on with their lives as though that is now a part of their life. And they can't have that happen, because as soon as that happens, they've lost control of whatever that issue is. Those are the things I was going to say.
Yeah, you're right.
Chris, your rebuttal.
Well, I think with the free energy, there's more of a power aspect to this, that if we were ever to find out that this exists, that these amazing technology exists that could give us free energy, we wouldn't need daddy government anymore. We wouldn't need to rely on any of this stuff anymore. So then they would lose all control and all power over humanity. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that would ever hold them back from disclosing any of this stuff, is those types of implications.
Yeah, and the control thing, I think, is way more important than money. We've talked about it a lot too, that I kind of disagree with the Bible on that one, where it says the love of money is the root of all evil. Nah, they don't really need money. They have all the money. They have more money than God. They don't need any more of the money. They can just make it.
But they make us think that we need it. That's the problem. So like Chris was talking about earlier, if everybody has a personal experience and just say they have a spiritual awakening or whatever wooey, term you want to use for it, but just say you start to care about things that don't really matter to the government anymore, like paying taxes. You're just like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to go live off grid, or I'll just go live in a tent forever. I'll just go camping all the time. I'm just going to go be with people I care about. I'm not going to shop at Walmart anymore at all. I'm not going to use pharmaceuticals anymore. That would shut them down. And if everybody started doing that, that would be a huge problem. So they turn our attention away from that to not have those experiences. They want us to care so much about money, going to work, doing these things, buying a house, paying your bills, so that we don't have money.
Being an upstanding citizen with a good credit score.
Love, it's like the needing thing. Yeah, exactly.
I think that you're completely right on that, Jen. It's the idea that none of us need to be in the rat race. But their whole goal isn't whether or not the rat race works. It's making sure that we think we need it. We need to be in that rat race. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as they make us think that whatever they're telling us we need, then they're winning. And for the people that decide, you know what, I'm going to grab a shipping container or 3 of them, I'm going to build them underground, nobody's going to know where the fuck I'm at anymore. Huge threats. Because that is an ideology, and that is way more powerful than anything else, is the idea that, granted, much like COVID, we saw that big split. There were the people that finally picked sides. Nope, I'm not going to do this. This is my final straw. I'm going to go right along with it. I'm going to get whatever in my body that you guys tell me I need. It's the same idea. It's like, if one person goes, we don't need the government, I'm going to go live underground. Fuck them. And that catches on. That's an ideological thing that it can't be stopped. And that's a huge threat. That's why whenever they have a high level person that's whether a social media influencer or whatever, that starts giving these ideas out, and they're a free agent, that's dangerous. That's when all of a sudden they start getting banned or they disappear. It's because they may not have any kind of political influence or financial influence, but holy shit, much like the Nazis, if you have an ideological influence, that is far greater than any other kind of weapon that they would be scared of.
And what do you think,
agree
like,
on that?
I like to think in extremes and act in moderation as much as I can. But to think in extremes is like what if that were to catch on and everybody builds their own, checks out from the system, lives underground. Again, thinking extreme here. What does the parasite class lose or gain from that? Like if everybody were to do that and detach from the system, we already established money is not the thing. They don't need money. They have everything. So if everybody, the majority of the population were just to check out, how does that hurt and or help the parasite class? Like what does that
There's
do?
the idea
Still
that
carry
there's
on.
something above the parasite class that is like feeding off of us in some type of way, and they're using these guys as like middle management, so they keep us around, they keep us compliant, they keep us as little batteries for whatever, either if it's
Like the
aliens
Eisenhower Accord.
or demons or whatever. They're using us as some sort of energetic food, and if we just if we check out, maybe they don't have as much energy siphoning off of us. I don't know. I think that's just one of the ideas of why that would be.
Yeah, and that was something Monica Perez from the Propaganda Report, one of the first times we kind of talked about that on the show, she actually came to that conclusion, and which is weird because she's more kind of like geopolitical and into that stuff. But she even kind of, it like dawned on her, like there's something other than control, power, and money, because all of that stuff doesn't really matter to this class. Like there's something else above that.
And I think like child sex trafficking is like an enormous thing. I think that there's this really sick class of predators that really thrive off of whatever they get out of these disgusting behaviors that is involved with child sex trafficking and some of the ritualistic aspects. I think that there's literally something to this energetic siphoning, and I think it has to do a lot with ritual abuse, torturing people, and a lot of awful things that they're doing with children on a large scale. And you heard about recently Madonna's orphanage is being investigated for sex trafficking, and more these celebrity fucks are getting kind of busted into this shit. So that's a great thing to see, that coming to light. But I think it's a huge thing when it comes to this ritual child sex thing.
Yeah, and I mean that's no surprise with Madonna after the weird shit that happened in 2020. Do you remember that? The
African government's investigating her and shit.
What?
Yeah,
I didn't even know
I
she had an
never heard any
orphanage.
of
That's
that.
fucking weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
No, remember those videos she had? I think it was on Instagram or something where she was in the bathtub talking about how she ran out of pasta or something. It was a fucking bizarre thing. Like if you ever look, maybe it's not even online anymore, but she's like, oh, it was.
Ambien and
Do you remember
wine?
that? It was something to the effect of, "We're all out of pasta, so I'm gonna have to have something else tonight." And she was like in the bathtub going crazy. It was the fucking most bizarre video you've ever seen.
Like a 17.
One of those pedophile
Oh.
code word bullshit videos.
Yeah, it was something like
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, no, and we've talked about that on the show and showed pictures of her now, and she looks. I mean, it's obvious she's had a little bit of surgery done, but it is
She
weird.
looks
It doesn't
scary.
look. It doesn't look like Madonna. Like when you think of Madonna,
Mhm.
it's a the 80s. She's gross, but then
It could
the
be
new
anybody
Madonna-
under there.
the new Madonna looks like a completely different person, and we've talked ad nauseum about clones and whatever, and it could be something like that. Who knows? But it's yeah, it's very
I
strange.
still think some of the behaviors at those highest levels of either celebrities or politics or the corporate arenas, that the level of psychopathy needed to thrive in those areas is beyond anything I could ever understand. And I know that there's a certain type of individual that just desires to have that much power. And when you at the top levels, you look at and they're fucking psycho, and they do the most evil, disgusting things. So it also makes me wonder, are they human? I don't know any human. I don't, in my personal life, nor have I ever met any person that is that really despicable and disgusting. I don't know if they're actually human. They could be, either aliens wearing skin suits or possessed or something. Who knows?
Yeah, and that's
Or AI.
Yeah, that's I kind of take the David Icke idea of reptilians as more metaphorical than anything, where they're so psychopathic and detached from human values that they might as well be reptiles. They're
I just
reptilian.
don't understand it. I can't comprehend that level of psychopathy and behavior, especially
Right,
when
and
it comes
day to
to what
day-
they do to children and shit.
Yeah, like day to day, like you were saying, do you know anybody that's that fucking crate or psychopathic? For the most part, no. I've met a few people that they're pretty close to it, but it's not an everyday thing.
Usually they were on lots of drugs or they had a bad, rough patch in their life, but they got
Correct.
through it,
It seems like
Yeah,
the
I've heard
worst
that.
of us are at the top of the pyramid, though. How the fuck does that work out? Nice guys finish last, I guess, because all the fuckers are at the top.
Well, I think here's the thing is that one, I think that that's in training. I think in some cases, I think that it's something that they were bred for. In other cases, like we've seen with, a lot of the upper class, whether you want to talk about the ones we know about, which I think are the front puppets like Rockefellers and whatnot. I think that those are just the names that they use as decoys from the people at the top for sure.
Forward-facing names, yes.
Yeah. I think that the people behind those are genuinely bred for it, and in a lot of cases, much like you've seen throughout history, so we're told, is I think that a lot of it were people that got corrupted by the things like the love of money or the love of power or anything like that. I don't think in a lot of ways we started out with a higher class nefarianism. I think that in many cases it was a fight for survival. Creme de la creme gets to the top, and they turn corrupt when they see anything being threatened in their perch. And I think that that's a lot of the way it started. And once they've secured it and they found a way to do it, regardless of the means, they then breed into the following generations a way to continue that power without losing any foothold. And centuries, millenniums, decades, whatever you want to call it later, we now have a ruling class that they don't even have faces. They don't exist. I mean, we talk about people that to this day, as far as the government knows, don't exist. And there are places in the world where that's all they are. People that they don't have birth certificates. They don't have social security numbers. They just live out in the bush. Nobody knows they exist. They live and die out there. Obviously, the people in power don't give a shit about them. But I also think that the people in power are exactly like that. They make sure that they will never get found out because they're the ones that control whether or not we do.
They're definitely breeding psychopaths. Have you guys talked to Jay Parker? Are you familiar with his story?
No.
He is a former satanic ritual abuse survivor in high-level families. I forget what city. It's one of those famous like sex pedophile cities in the United States.
Las Vegas?
No, in Northeast somewhere. Anyway, I can't think of it, but he was telling his story of his childhood, and he was raised in a very prominent family that practiced these satanic torture, ritual abuse and practices that are kind of handed down through generations. And he said some of the things that he would be subjected to, he's very brave for talking about this shit, but he said in order to break them, they would either be subjected to watch a murder or a ritual killing. He said in his case, him and this young lady, they were about 15 or 16 at the time, they were drugged, and they were made to kind of fondle each other and make out. And then when they passed out from whatever drug they were given, however many hours or minutes later, whenever this gentleman woke up, he said that the girl that he was making out with was disembodied next to him. She was all chopped into pieces, and his family members were standing around him laughing like, "Oh, you did a good job. You chopped her up real good." Which in reality he didn't. They were just trying to like kind of break him so that they would breed him into this next level psychopath.
And blackmail, because as soon as you get to, there's all kinds of stuff with that where drugs that basically incapacitate you, much less change your mentality, is they subject you to participate in things without you realizing or not caring because you're on drugs, that they are videotaping pictures, this, that, and the other. And whether or not you did it doesn't matter. They have all the evidence to hang over the head that should you ever decide to do anything about it, they're going to fucking burn you.
Exactly. Yes. And this is happening in high level elite families across the planet. And that's what perpetuates this behavior is, unfortunately, I'm not saying that all elite globalist families are doing these satanic rituals, but in some high levels, yes, this is what happens to perpetuate the psychopathy in those families.
Yeah, especially the Royals. I've heard a lot of people lately just talking trash on the Royals, and I never understood that at all. We're Americans. We gave them the finger and said, no, we're going to do our own thing now. And now all the
Right.
Americans are like, oh, what's the royal family doing? Who gives a fuck?
Well,
They
I feel
talk
so
about
bad that the queen
tea.
died.
And I'm very sorry. I know we have a lot of United Kingdom listeners. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the fucking Royals. They suck. And so like you were saying, not everybody at the top does that. I'm not sure.
And I'm sure
But,
that there are different like factions that might be battling it out at the top. I don't know if maybe all of those that we would consider elitists or globalists have the same idea or outcomes that they want for humanity. Some may have differing agendas. Some may be going about it with a pure heart, but maybe kind of retarded in their delivery of things and maybe fucking everything up. I don't know. But I do think that there are different factions with different ideas and putting out different agendas right now. And I think they're battling it out for power. And I think that's why it's also difficult to find out what the overarching ideas that are happening and the overarching outcomes that they want to impose onto humanity. You know, some believe that we're headed towards this transhuman future where we're going to be integrated with machines and we're going to be turned into ladyboys in the metaverse. And then others believe that we're going into a nuclear war and everybody's going to be annihilated. And some believe we're going into the slave state where it's going to be a social credit nightmare where we won't be able to even leave our houses or get a blowjob unless having a nice social credit score. So I don't know. We've got different options to where we could go, but I think that it's always somewhere in the middle. It's never going to be the extreme shit that they're trying to put out there. There's a lot of doom and gloomers out there.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that on when we talked with you last about how there's but I like to listen to them. Like we said, I like to listen to them just
fun.
to
Doom porn.
what they think. Yeah. And then I'm like, that's probably not going to happen. Like a lot of people are saying, oh, we're in inevitable, like imminent nuclear war with Russia.
It's always good to know the worst case scenario and just be prepared just in case.
They've been saying that since the 80s, people. This isn't anything new. It's just Putin now. But they've been saying nuclear war since the 80s. Hide under your desk at school because that'll fucking help you, you know, if a nuke drops. That desk, that 2 inches of plywood, that'll be great. But yeah, it seems like there's there definitely is options of how to think about the future and what's going to happen, but it doesn't seem like it's that extreme. We went over that too. It just always seems to kind of level out. There's all these thoughts that are extreme, but the actual reality doesn't seem to be.
Making us a battery though is what I feel like. Humans are naturally, I mean, I think as a child, you're naturally positive. You're happy. You're trying to do fun things, but then the world kind of beats you down. And that's the negative. It's the opposite, like a magnet. That's what you need to create electricity. If you're going to create a charge, you need positive and negative. So there needs to be those negative or opposite opposing feelings that a human has of happiness and despair. And if they can make the world do both enough, then they get their energy. I don't think it's from only negativity. I think it's from absolutely both.
No, they need the love and light people that are super over the top.
And then they need the people who are doom and gloom as well.
I love my love and light people. You're great, but goddamn, fucking get sad once in a while. Like you're driving me nuts.
Well, you know what's funny about that too is that Jen, your thing about how you just explained that, it reminded me of Monsters Inc. How the whole time what they're running. First of all, can we talk about how fucking crazy that is? The idea of monsters that we've all talked about, whether it be a Yeti or whatever, are going through portals that they hook up in their world to go through the closets and scare the kids, which will not be believed. But besides
Monsters Inc. is crazy encoded.
Yeah, I know. And what I was just thinking of is, in the way of what Jen was talking about, is the entire movie, they need screams. They need that fear. That is what powers their city until the very end, when they realize that laughter and the positivity of going into a kid's room and making them fucking laugh actually has 10 times the amount of power of a scream. And I get what you were talking about with, you know, it needing the positive and negative energy of positivity and negative emotions. But I do think that the idea of keeping a negative energy as the baseline supplement for that energy, whether it be energy vampires, harvesting, whatever it is that they're doing for it. I think that that's a lot easier because, like you said, just by getting older, you end up getting fearful and anxious, and you go through the things that make you stronger. And if you don't, then you start to crumble under the weight. And I think that that's a lot easier to perpetuate. It's harder to make people happy with things that they struggle with than it is to just allow them to constantly be in fear of what is coming. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we've seen such a skyrocket in the last 130 years in population, is because along with every other dot that you can connect through the last, century and a half, is the more people you have that are on the bottom rung, because that pyramid's going to grow wider, and it's going to grow wider down at the bottom. It's not going to grow wider at the top. Well, then they get more of what they need, whether it be, some kind of treaty with whatever interdimensional or extraterrestrial beings that need us for that battery pack. Is the more you have of it, the more that they want. And I 100% think that that harvesting of energy, even if it's natural, the idea that they don't really have to do much, they just have to plant a seed, an ideology, and it immediately starts getting us into that negative energy level, much like his dark materials, the dust just coming off of us and then sucking it out for their own. It's like, I could 100% see that happening. It's more of a currency, and it's a currency that's being traded with things we don't even understand.
Yeah, you're right, 100%. I remember back whenever I first started doing the show and before, the level of depression I'd wake up with every day for years. I mean, most of my life, I was depressed for a very long time. And just, I could feel the pulsating negative energy coming off myself whenever I'd wake up, just the lack of drive and the awful, sluggishness and depression and lack of sleep and emotions that I were feeling, I know had to have been putting off some kind of powerful energy. Multiply that by millions of people who are either dissatisfied with their love life, their jobs, anything that they're doing at their home, anything that could make a person depressed, and you add that to a large scale. It's got to be an intense source of energy. And like you said, it's a lot easier seemingly to get people depressed than to keep people happy.
And I think that they perpetuate the idea that we need them to be happy. Because if they realize that you can be happy on your own and with nothing, they've lost. And they want to keep you on the idea of being dependent on them for being happy, without them ever actually giving you what you need to be happy. Because as long as they make you think you need them to be happy, then they can just keep you shitty. And I think that that's a great strategy if you're fucked up.
Yeah, and if you actually get to the point where, there's probably Gandhi, somebody who's gotten to the point where they're like, I've like transcended this. I can be happy on my own. Well, he fucking died. So, I mean, watch out. Don't get too fucking out of the system, because they'll just pop you. But if you get that far out of the system, you probably won't care if they pop you either. So, yeah, kind of win-win, I guess. So get out of the system. Sure.
Then you mentioned something about our population. I just wanted to make a comment about that. I think that, first of all, overpopulation, I think, is a huge myth. And
Agreed.
I think that we have not only that, but I think we have a lot less people than they're trying to portray. That I don't even
what's
think
needed.
I don't even think all the people that we do have on the planet are even inhabiting, these flesh suits. But that's a different story anyway. But just drive across, from Colorado to California, and you won't see anybody. It is fucking empty. There's nothing out there. Everyone is jam-packed into cities.
Yes.
And even when you go to cities, it's crowded, it's full, but it's hard to fathom the number of people that they're trying to say that we have on this planet, just in the United States alone, and just do some traveling anywhere. And it doesn't fit. It doesn't make any sense. So that's another thing that they're touting, overpopulation. And that's why we need to get rid of so many people. And that's why they're sterilizing people. And
wait, are you saying that the global elitists would inflate numbers to make us think something?
Oh no, that's nothing they would ever do. But yeah, man, that's just another thing that that they throw at us. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, and just recently I've been kind of thinking that the 8 billion or whatever they say is on this planet is probably not correct. No way of proving that. How the fuck is anyone going to prove that? You gonna go
If
counting
it's
everybody?
the case, we're not overpopulated because Chris is 100% right. So I used to live in Indiana and I would drive from Indiana to Massachusetts, where I'm from. And then I moved from Indiana to California, where I live now. Driving was absolutely insane. I saw almost zero buildings. I would pass through occasional cities here and there, but there's a lot of land to populate.
And that's
if
just
it's
here.
needed, it's
Yeah.
fucking there for sure. There's a lot of empty space in this country.
Like, we got room
At
for
least
more
in this
people.
country. That's all I know.
No.
I don't know the whole world.
As long
but
as they're not
there's room
retards.
for everyone here.
And we've heard on multiple fronts, different podcasts and things of that nature, where not only is that not true about there being too many people, but because of trends, which has been, you can actually see this in your personal life. Think about our parents having 4 to 8 kids or however many it was, and everybody was doing that. And now, not only are people waiting longer, sometimes they don't have any. If they do, they have maybe 1 or 2. That peak of how many the next generation had, that generation is siphoning it down. Then that generation is siphoning it down, which means that when the population that had 8 siblings all start to die effectively at the same time or within the same decade, you're going to see a decivilization of population decline regardless of what the numbers actually are, and you will be able to see that in your personal life. I think Mysterious Universe did a whole podcast on their last season about that, where the idea is that by 2040, 30 years from now, when the boomers are all completely now wiped out, the children of World War II veterans and whatnot, and their kids, which would be like Blair's age, our age, that generation who is only having 1 to 2 kids, when the boomers die, and now it's on the last generation that had multiple kids per family, we are going to be the parents that when we start to die out, you're going to just see that number fucking plummet, because they aren't reproducing the same multiplication that they were 40 years ago, 50, 60 years ago, where it was more is better, populate the earth, this, that, and the other. I mean, even if you don't believe the numbers, according to the consensus, World War II, when we entered it, had almost exactly half of what we have now. So in 60 years, we've doubled that number, which is astronomical. And even if that's not true, well, what you can see in your personal life is that people are having a lot less kids these days. And I would say that within 20 or 30 years, yeah, you're going to see a massive population decline, regardless of what those numbers actually are.
Yeah, and that's fine. Actually, to some extent, that's fine that some people are having less kids. Like there's some times where I'm like, maybe Bill Gates has it right. Like every time I drive, I'm like, yeah, there is too many people. Fuck it. Like shoot them up with whatever. Get them the fuck out of here.
For that is that there won't be enough people left to run the infrastructure that's been created for our world. But if that collapses, that might not be so bad. We might just have to get back to our roots. We might just have to learn how to do things.
Well, and wait, real quick, Ben, to go to the extreme again, like I like to do in my little brain, is what if the human race were to go extinct in the next 200 years? Who would care? Not the animals. They don't give a shit. Not the earth, probably. They're like, yay, less plastic or whatever. So I don't understand why everybody is so scared of extinction. You're all going to die. So if you were to die and then the human race went extinct, you wouldn't care because you wouldn't be here to witness it. The last person to care would be the last person on earth, which, to be fair, would be shitty to be the last person. Well, actually, that'd be fucking great.
Joe, I was just about to say, I was going to say the last couple of people on earth that are inhabiting whatever the fuck they want, they're going to be like, oh my God, all the people are gone. Fuck yeah. Oh my God, we could do what
we have our run of Walmart now. I have so many
like that show, The Last Man on Earth, just fucking go through cities and piss through all the natural resources. It doesn't fucking matter.
Shooting bazookas into the sky with reckless abandon.
Well, and the bigger problem is that because of the issue with depopulation, it's not so much the idea that it's going to be depopulized. I don't know if that's a word. It's the idea that bringing that number back up is actually way harder than it was 40, 50 years ago. Whether you want to talk about microplastics causing infertility, people just choosing not to, people being naturally or hereditarily infertile. This idea is that not only will you see a population decline just by deaths on numbers per family based on generation, but you're going to see the ones that are still existent not capable of reproducing. And so
this segment brought to you by Blue Chew. Get your boner on.
They're going to do some Handmaid's Tale shit before they let that happen, though. If they need us to survive, they will start taking certain people and saying, first they'll make an incentive out of it. Like, hey, do you want an extra $200? It'll be like getting the jab.
Right.
Hey, why don't you be a surrogate? It'll be something like that. Of course, they're not going to just come door to door.
Let me throw this one out there. There's some that believe that there's a sort of terraforming going on, not only to our atmosphere and the land and what they're feeding us through GMOs and of course the jabby jabs, but that they're kind of preparing us for the next level of human that they want to create through these type of experimental things that we've been subjected to through our food, water, air, and medical system, that eventually they want to create this new type of person that can survive in whatever type of atmosphere or world that there's trying to create by terraforming, by spraying shit in the sky, by altering our genetics. That's just another possibility that some believe we're headed towards.
Yeah, and nothing's off the table. I mean, like I said, think in the extreme. It could be any of that and none of it. Who knows? It seems more like it's whatever you choose it to be. And
if you believe in reincarnation, you might experience that in your next life. Who knows?
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Actually, come back as like a little.
You come back, you're half AI. You're like, what the fuck? I just complained about this in a podcast.
Why do I have
like
a metal
50 years ago?
This is actually pretty cool. I'm gonna tear a hole through some shit.
I'm really holding out for the Mad Max world outcome. Yeah, I'd really like to be that right there during that.
For one lifetime, that would be fucking awesome. I think I would die in 3 seconds, but it would be great.
Dude,
it's best 3 seconds.
I just saw one of my friends on Facebook just made a post where it said where people think we're headed, and it's a Mad Max photo, and then it said where we're actually headed, and it's a Mandalorian photo, and I was all if only. Like, fuck, dude, either if it was a Mad Max future, I'm all for that. A small little colony, don't fuck with us, or we get to shoot you and nobody's gonna care.
I just want to wear a spiked cod piece with no shirt and chains on.
Yeah, I want to be able to shoot, like, shout out to my future self, future life. I would love if my future self would choose a fucking cool reality. I'm not gonna remember this one, right? So choose a cool one next time. This one's cool, actually, but it's very confusing. Choose something less confusing. Thank you, future self. We appreciate you.
Spike cod piece and dyed pubes. That's where I'm going.
You can do that.
That is a fucking sound drop. Are you fucking shitting me?
There you go, baby. You're welcome.
What's the timestamp on that one?
I don't
Okay. Yeah. Oh, wrong button. All right. Well, fuck. Hang on. There we go. All right, Chris. We will let you.
Whoa! Now you're super
You're a
echoey.
robot. Robot Joe.
I'm what?
You
Oh,
sound like
shit.
you're in an
Now we're in a
auditorium.
tunnel.
There you are.
Oh, yep. Hang on.
There
How's
we
that?
go. Yep.
Yeah.
That was good,
Whoa,
buddy.
that was fucking weird. I mean, not that weird. I just hit the wrong button, like usual.
Thanks for joining us, Chris. We're still doing
Yes.
this.
I love it.
Yeah. Well,
Wouldn't
dude,
be legit
Chris,
bad
tell
without it.
everybody. Yeah, exactly. Tell everybody where they can find you and all the many shows you do. Way more shows. Way more
ridiculous.
shows than I do. Yeah.
Yes, you can find all of our content at forbiddenknowledge.news. That's our website. We also feature amazing podcasts like Legit Bat on our website as well. They've got about 10 shows on there right now. We're about to pop a couple of more up there. And we're also on Rockfin. We are on all podcast platforms, of course. We just put clips up on YouTube, and we also put new episodes on Rockfin. So that is where you can find us. And thanks again for having me, guys. That was great.
Thank you
Course,
so much
buddy.
for coming back. That was awesome.
And you're on very thin ice on YouTube. I can't believe
Man.
they haven't just fucking dumped you yet.
I know,
Why
it's-
are you still there?
I kind of want them to, man. I just want to get it over with. I know it's gonna happen one day, but I'm just hanging
Like
on
a
barely.
bitchy girlfriend that's just trying to hang on just so she can be a douche to you every now and then. She's like, I want to
Ricky
fight
Gervais,
today,
like,
You-
but I'm not going to break up.
time, don't
YouTube's
spend
just-
time.
YouTube's just blue balling your breakup. Like,
They'll
get it up.
literally wait till
dude.
like I have a couple of days
Hold
left
on.
on restriction, and then boom, just hit me with another strike or something. So it's another 3 months before I can post and some shit.
And you're still at half chub with your balls tied up, and you're like, God damn it, just do it. Just fucking do it. Anyway,
Wow.
okay, that's a weird way to
That got
end. All
graphic
right.
real
Yeah.
quick.
Wonderful.
All right. Well, I mean, that's how we end. Thanks, everybody. Bye.